Mainlanders! Today I'd like to share a video of a build out I've done on a new abandoned parcel that I've acquired. This is going to be the second of 3 building examples that I'm going to do to kind of show you how I've built some homes and things like that. This particular video is not scripted, so you're going to get to hear me do a lot of ums and things like that as I kind of walk you through what I've done and why I've done what I've done. So let's go ahead and get started. So the parcel that I purchased is Roadside, and I needed a copy of the texture that's used for the road in order to make a driveway and kind of make the entire build look cohesive and all together. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the texture for this road anywhere. I started by going to the SecondLife forums and making a post to ask to see if anybody had a copy of this texture, and I got a response the next day that somebody told me to go to a place called Mole Mart, which I thought was amazing. Mole Mart is a little store that they've put somewhere on the mainland that SecondLife residents known as moles,
Mole.
where they put the things that they are selling up there in the Mole Mart. So like copies of textures and little builds that they've done that you can go and purchase these things for free. If you don't know what a mole is, a SecondLife mole is a member of a Linden approved team that are residents that get paid for their time, and they go around the mainland and they work on projects. So they build things like roads and set up for events and stuff like that. So right now I kind of bounced around and looked for different mole stores that I got in these series of links to try to find this texture for this road. Unfortunately, I never found it. I never did find the texture. I went to a couple of different Mole Mart stores and got lots of cool things, but the texture for the road was nowhere to be found. So what I did instead was I went onto the SecondLife marketplace and kind of checked again using a series of different keywords, using the continent name and atoll road and things like that, but I never did find the texture. So what I decided to do was just to go take a picture of it myself. Now, I'm not a texture maker, so I can't really make seamless textures or anything like that, but what I can do is make something that kind of works. So I took a screenshot of the road itself, and then I saved it, and then I went to my favorite little, picture tweaker and called Canva and spread it out and made a 5x12 texture and then uploaded it into SecondLife. So then I could use something that looked kind of similar, and I actually got really lucky with where I ended up taking a picture and cropping things. It doesn't, when you butt the textures right up next to each other, it doesn't look too bad. So I don't know how I got that lucky, but I did. So you can see that I used this texture and applied it to a prim that I shoved in the ground of the terrain of the parcel that I'm doing. And real quick, you can see I've got the little Hobbit house here. I applied the texture for the grass itself to the outside of the Hobbit house so it looked more blendy. And then, I'm using the road texture as the sort of driveway into this Hobbit house area. So let's talk real quick about the driveway. You can see here that I'm building on land that is not mine. This is actually Linden Road land. And this is a trick that a lot of mainland residents use to kind of build outside their parcel lines. Now, the truth is this is probably not something that I should be doing. However, I've done it many times, and I always try to make sure that when I'm building on the, the little sides of these roads on this Linden Road mainland parcel, that I kind of keep it minimal. I don't add a lot of signs or, anything like that. I just go with trying to make it blend in with the environment and make my mainland parcel look like it should be there. And so in my experience, when you do it this way, you're not only enhancing the mainland area that you're on, but I haven't had any prims returned by moles or Linden, members of the Linden group or anything like that because I've put these prims out here. So as you can see, I've probably got, I think I finished with maybe 10 prims worth of stuff that was actually on this quote road parcel. And I tried to work really hard to make sure that it just blends right in. It looks like it's supposed to be there. So I'm sure I'm going to get some scolding here here in the comments about doing stuff like this, but you know, it is what it is. So then I went to the marketplace and kind of looked around. I spent some time trying to find some rocks because you can't terraform on land that's not yours. You can terraform land that is yours. So what I did was I bought some low Li mesh rocks, and I used these rocks to kind of like hide the sides of these prims so that they didn't just look like a big block. You know, the goal here, if I'm going to put this outside of my parcel and butt it up against a public road, is I wanted it to look nice, and I wanted it to, you know, to look like something that should be there and that the moles would be like, oh, this is great. So you can see here that I've kind of like tweaked these mesh rocks and put them along the sides to kind of like blend them in and make it look like this cobblestone driveway is supposed to be there. So I added a bunch of them. I was going for kind of a rustic look with this Hobbit house. I have some other modern builds, but this one I wanted to be kind of blendy and natural, especially since I have an established neighbor next to me. So I didn't want to just show up and, you know, put this super crazy fantasy mesh house right next to this resident next to me. So I wanted to make sure that it looked nice and it didn't take over or distract from his kind of modern looking house that he has right there. So I used a lot of linden trees to kind of disguise the house and help it blend in with the surroundings. And then I applied some of these T-mesh super cute wildflowers and helped decorate the area. So I used the wildflowers to hide the sides of these big driveway prims. As you can see here, I've got a binding prim on the inside of my parcel. So I'm using a rock or something on the inside of my parcel as like the root prim. And then all of these other prims, I link to it and then I move them outside of the boundary. So that's what I'm doing with the flowers here. I kind of went crazy with the flowers. I love these T-mesh flowers, and they're so low impact that they're easy to use. And then once you link them together, the land impact even drops more. So they're a really easy way to kind of decorate the area. So then I went to work on the mound of the Hobbit house itself. It looks kind of like, I don't know, like a big lump in the middle of the land. And I kind of wanted it to make it more blendy. I've got my parcel lines turned on so I don't start putting prims on my neighbor's property. But you can see I can put the rocks out here, and I'm kind of trying to blend the lump look to make it more look like maybe like a natural looking hill. So I've got some rocks that I'm sort of shoving into the side here of the land. I still kind of felt like it looked sort of lumpy, so I decided to extend this driveway that I've made into a porch. So there'll be like a walkway porch area on the outside of the Hobbit home. So I added a prim, and then you can see me terraforming down underneath the prim. And I like doing it this way because it makes real natural lines on the sides of the prim. And then, you know, I had to adjust the driveway and stuff like that. Once I had my little porch prim the way I wanted, I applied that same linden texture that I made, and then I used the planar option. If you use planar and you set all of your textures to planar, and then you click align planar texture, it will kind of make it look like it's all part of one big prim, or all the texture is very seamless and natural looking. So you can see here I did some aligning and tweaked my little flowers and worked real hard to make sure that it looks natural and nice for whoever it is that purchases it. The next thing that I did was did some basic flower decorating up near the front so it looks nice and attractive if somebody decided they wanted to buy this house, and did some general checking, made sure my trees looked okay, and you know that the whole plot looked nice. So then the next thing I did was played with the textures a little bit. This builder that's made this Hobbit house he doesn't want you to sell it the way that it is. And so I played with the textures a little bit, but then ultimately I decided that it just looks really good the way the guy did it. So I put the the door for the Hobbit house there and tweaked it, and then I ended up making it phantom. It's not necessary that I do a script for the door. I just made the door phantom so you could walk right through. And then I went back and I checked his marketplace listing to make sure I really understood what his terms were. Once I realized that if I didn't change the textures for this house, that I could be violating the terms of service. So I decided to write him a note card, kind of explaining what I was doing with Operation Mainland, and that I really loved his house and I really respected his work. I asked him if I would be able just to sell the house as is if I made it transfer only permissions. And and it took a couple of days, but he did send me a message back, and he said that would be fine so long as I linked, a prim to this house. And I assume that's probably because he wants to avoid having people message him as the creator of the Hobbit house to ask questions about the Hobbit house. So I linked a prim to the Hobbit house and made it the root. So now I'm technically the owner/creator of this house. So now if anybody has a problem with it, they would message me and not bother him. I also linked some flowers and stuff to the tea mesh flowers to it. So because that's what he asked me to do. So once I finished, I had a completed parcel. I decided to list the parcel I listed it for 2,500 linden, which is great. I purchased it for 1,024 linden because it's a 1024 square parcel. It was abandoned land, and they sold it to me for 1 linden per square meter. And so it ended up being 2,500 linden. I spent about 450 linden on the Hobbit house itself, but I'm hoping to use this again in other areas that I want to make a more like blendy type of build. So I plan to, recuperate the money that I have spent by selling more parcels that have this Hobbit home in there. The tea mesh flowers, I think were 99 linden, and you get 3 different types, so they're fabulous. And then the rocks, I can't remember what they were, but they weren't very expensive either. And all of those things I'll use over and over and over again in many builds. So I plan to recuperate the losses that way. Hopefully this parcel will sell for 2,500 linden, and I'll make about 1,000 linden profit, a little bit more, which is great because the profit of this little parcel that I've purchased will allow me to not only buy another 1024 parcel, but it'll allow me to buy a second one as well. So I can maintain and have multiple abandoned mainland properties that I can develop and sell off to interested residents. If you'd like to go to any of the places I talked about in this video, like Mole Mart, or get a copy of that texture that I made, or maybe even buy this Hobbit house for your own parcel, just check out the description below. Thanks for watching my Hobbit Build It video. If you have any questions, please reach out to me in world at Fiore Fremen, and be sure to check out our new Operation Mainland store/SLRR hub. Curious about what else we're doing with Operation Mainland? Click subscribe to this channel and find out more.